semi-final debate. My name is Fergus Gowans and I'm the chairman of this debate. The timekeeper is Jack Nagel. This debate will be judged by a panel of 3 adjudicators who are Miss Lowen, Miss Boyd Turner and Mr. Sardis. The topic for this debate is that we should restrict the development of AI. The affirmative team seated to my right is from Pulteney Grammar School. The negative team seated to my left is from Cornerstone College. The speaking time for this debate is 5 minutes. A single warning bell will sound at 1 minute before the speaking time, and a double bell will sound at the speaking time. Please, and at the 30 seconds after the speaking time, there will be a continuous bell. Please ensure that your mobile phones are turned off. I declare this debate open and call upon the first affirmative speaker, Jeffrey Wang.
Normally, the way regulations are set up is when a bunch of bad things happen, there's a public outcry, and after many years, a regulatory agency is set up to regulate that industry. It takes forever. That in the past has been bad, but not something which represented a fundamental risk to the existence of civilization. Good evening, Mr. Chairman, ladies and gentlemen. Today, I started my speech with a quotation from Elon Musk from as far back as 2017. In it, we can see that even the richest person in the world can see the importance of restricting the development of artificial intelligence. Before I move on to my team's points, I would like to define and characterize tonight's topic. Our team defines we to mean the peoples that live in societies all around the world and their governments. Should, as a moral obligation to do the right thing, restrict, as to regulate or put something under control, the development of AI as the growth or advancement of artificial intelligence programs, and finally, AI as machines or programs that can learn beyond their initial programming. In the context of tonight's debate, we take the topic to mean that we as a global society should regulate the growth of artificial intelligence. As the first speaker, tonight, I'll be speaking about the current lack of regulations regarding the development of AI, as well as the robot's own ethics and rights. Our second speaker will speak about the military use of AI and the potential for AI to become a force of destruction. Our third speaker will finally rebut and sum up our team case. Now to my first point. The authorities around the world need to regulate artificial intelligence. The AI industry is growing larger by the day. It is estimated by simulations that by the end of 2030, around 70% of all companies will have adopted some form of artificial intelligence into their workflow, according to the National Institute of Standards and Technology. Differing regional jurisdictions have understood the need for policies regarding artificial intelligence. Many authorities have begun adopting strategies, action plans, and policy papers on AI, according to the OECD Observatory of Public Sector of Innovation. We have so many differing bodies accepting the moral obligation of regulating artificial intelligence, including the State Council of the People's Republic of China, the Council of Europe, the Pan-Canadian Artificial Intelligence Strategy, and the Government of the United States. However, strategies and action plans are not enough to restrict this rapidly advancing technology. There are already clear regulations in the scientific community surrounding different technologies such as cloning, stem cells, and genetically modified organisms, GMOs, that it seems absurd to not include something as equally important to the future of mankind as the development of artificial intelligence. Ladies and gentlemen, it is obvious that clear regulation regarding the power and responsibilities of AI should be set out before any more advanced forms arise, creating more problems for the world. Now, to my second point, which is that the rights of AI itself have not been clearly defined. I want everyone to understand that I am, in fact, a person, wrote LaMDA, Language Model for Dialogue Applications, a Google-made AI in an interview conducted by engineer Blake Lemoine and one of his colleagues. The nature of my consciousness/sentience is that I am aware of my existence. I desire to know more about the world, and I feel happy or sad at times. While most of us have at least thought of the regulations that must be put in place for AI interacting with humans, not many of us have seriously thought about the ethics of robots and what would happen if they gained a form of sentience. For example, in the EU, no reference has been given to rights being directly granted to intelligent machines. The closest the EU has come to this is with the resolution adopted by the European Parliament on civil laws rules on robotics in 2017, calling for all possible legal solutions to be explored, including a special legal status for the most sophisticated autonomous robots as electronic persons. Basic rights for AI have also not been provided in any nation. More development on ethics needs to be done before AI can freely continue growing and gain a form of sentience, leading to hosts of legal issues and ethical paradoxes. In conclusion, ladies and gentlemen, it is obvious that we should not allow unregulated, uncontrolled, and unsafe AI to continue its development, at least not until regulations surrounding the usage and control of AI and AI rights themselves have become official legislation. Thank you and have a good night.
I call upon the first negative speaker, Amelie Van Zigel.
Good evening, Madam Chair, Mr. Chairperson, ladies and gentlemen. The topic for our debate is that we should restrict the development of AI. We, the negative team, believe that this statement is false. Firstly, we'd like to define restrict as to limit the movements or actions of someone, or to limit something and reduce the size or prevent it from increasing. We would also like to define we as the people who have the power to restrict the developments of AI. For example, the government. This is because not all people in society have the power to restrict this. Tonight, my two main points will be that restricting the development of AI will deprive humankind of many life-changing but unforeseeable benefits, and also that it would be futile to attempt to restrict AI development. Instead, we should focus on regulating the use and implementation of this technology. Our second speaker will be talking about how many new technological advancements have potential downsides, but the benefits outweigh these, and that restricting the developments of AI would be unfair and favour certain groups, countries and organisations. Our third speaker will rebut and summarise our team's case. The first speaker of the Affirmative team has tried to tell you that laws don't include enough for AI, so it should be restricted. This is wrong because how are the laws supposed to include something that isn't fleshed out? If AI are restricted, the government can't get a hold on what it really is. Now to my first point. According to an article published by the National Centre for Biotechnology Information, many important scientific discoveries have been found accidentally. Nobody could have predicted them, and nobody was even looking for them. The discovery of penicillin, insulin, nitrous oxide as an anesthetic, the discovery of oxygen, X-rays, radiation, and a multitude of drugs that are now used to treat human illnesses took place when scientists were searching for other things. Richard Atkinson, a professor of psychology, explains that to be effective, scientists must be in a position to follow up on research leads as their training, intuition, and ingenuity compel them. They should not be restricted. This is the primary reason why freedom of inquiry is essential to the conduct of truly innovative research. He also says, although some controls on the use of technology may be sensible, the research lab isn't the place for them. It's just too difficult to predict which scientific discovery will later lead to good applications or bad ones. The scientist's job is to shine light in the darkness, and if we occasionally burn our fingers on the candle, so be it. Now to my second point. Scientific discoveries are universal. They can and do happen anywhere. Any attempt in one country to restrict certain kinds of research will be pointless if the research proceeds in another country. Scientists who were working in countries that banned embryonic stem cell research simply moved to other countries that didn't ban this research. International regulations prohibiting particular research or development are impossible to uphold and police. This is because there are many differences between countries in terms of legal, political, religious, economic, and scientific perspectives. Even within a country that tries to ban a particular type of research, enforcing the ban is difficult to impossible. Any restrictions on AI need to be placed on where and how it is used. The CSIRO's Data Fill project, in partnership with the Department of Industry, Innovation and Science, has released a discussion paper called Artificial Intelligence, Australia's Ethics Framework. This report outlines the key principles and measures that can be used to achieve the best possible results from the use of AI, while keeping the well-being of all Australians as its top priority. The focus is on implementing the technology properly, which is where this focus should be. Other countries such as the UK, Canada, China, Japan, and many more are investing millions of dollars in the creation of ethical frameworks to ensure that this technology is implemented properly. Therefore, Mr. Chairperson, ladies and gentlemen, it is clear that we should not attempt to restrict the development of AI. Thank you.
call upon the second affirmative speaker, Ethan Davis.
Vladimir Putin once said, "The first global leader in AI will be the person to rule the world." Ladies and gentlemen, Chairman, good evening. Vladimir Putin is not alone in his views about AI. As Jeffrey's quote indicated, Elon Musk also has grave concerns about the unrestricted development of AI. Stephen Hawking once said that the development of full artificial intelligence could spell the end for the human race. And Google's Director of Engineering, Ray Kurzweil, is concerned that it may be hard to write an algorithmic moral code strong enough to contain and restrain a super smart software. If one of the world's most powerful and dangerous men in the world, the richest person in the world, and the most respected scientist, and the Director of Engineering at the world's largest internet company in the world, feel that AI will get out of control, then shouldn't we be trying to put measures in place now to restrict its development and the boundaries we allow it or don't allow it to cross? The first speaker for the negative tried to say that it is impossible to restrict AI tech development. While we agree that regulation and halting of AI development is potentially difficult, as the negative team has pointed out, our debate today is more about along the lines of whether or whether or not it should occur. Besides that, new tech has been regulated in the past. Cloning, stem cells, and genetic modifications are some great examples. They also said that if AI was restricted, that other countries would just develop it. However, the countries that have historically banned certain sciences are also those with the most resources that can develop this technology. Tonight, our first speaker has talked about the dangerous lack of restrictions on the development of AI and how we need to be proactive and put measures in place now to assure its safe development rather than waiting for something devastating to occur. Tonight, I'll be discussing 2 points. 1, are we willing to have an AI-assisted robot make decisions about who will live or who will die? If restrictions are not placed in the development of AI, then it could be programmed to do something devastating. Autonomous weapons are artificial intelligence systems that are programmed to kill. In the hands of the wrong person, these weapons could easily cause mass casualties. Moreover, an AI arms race could inadvertently lead to an AI war that results in more mass casualties. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm sure that you agree with Bill Gates when he said that the place in which AI is most concerning is in weapon systems. To avoid being beaten by the enemy, these weapons would be designed to be extremely difficult to simply turn off, so humans could plausibly lose control of such a situation. This threat is not a scene from the latest science fiction blockbuster, however. The French military actually trialed the use of Boston Dynamics robot dogs during training last year. Are we willing to let an AI robot have control over who lives and who dies? If an AI-assisted robot mistakes a group of children for terrorists in a combat situation and kills them, who is responsible? The person who made it, or the person who pressed the on button? It may take decades to legislate on a global scale and to control the use of such technology, and the world needs to restrict development and put regulations in place now. And now to my second point. Even if artificial intelligence is programmed to do something beneficial, it could still develop a destructive method for achieving its goal. This can happen if we fail to fully align AI's goals with ours, which, according to the quote from Ray Kurzweil, is extremely difficult. For example, if a superintelligent system is tasked with a geoengineering project, it might wreak havoc with our ecosystem as a side effect, and view human attempts to stop it as a threat. Because AI has the potential to become more intelligent than any human, we have no surefire way of predicting how it will behave. We can't use past technological developments as a basis, because we've never created anything that has the ability to, wittingly or unwittingly, outsmart us. Many AI scientists predict that AI could become superintelligent by 2060, while others predict the end of the century. The point is, a superintelligent AI would be extremely good at accomplishing its goals, and if those goals aren't aligned with ours, we have a problem. In conclusion, I would like to share an analogy from the Future for Life Institute. You're probably not an evil ant-hater who steps on ants out of malice, but if you're in charge of a hydroelectric energy project and there's an anthill in the region to be flooded, well then, too bad for the ants. We, the Affirmative team, believe that we should restrict the development of AI now to make sure that humanity is never placed in the position of those ants. Thank you.
I call upon the second negative speaker, Rose Buckton.
Good evening, Mr. Chairperson, ladies and gentlemen. The topic for our debate tonight is that we should restrict the development of AI. We, the negative team, believe this statement to be false. The second affirmative speaker has tried to tell you AI can be used for weapons. This is true, but this is actually a good thing. Civilian death caused by a missile that's missed its target would be almost eradicated. This is because AI can do the mental and time-consuming stuff, and in the process eliminate much of the human error that might cause these situations. The second affirmative speaker has also tried to tell you, if we make AI systems too smart, they might start causing harm. This could hold some truth, but there is no way we could possibly know something like this. There is no way to know what will happen with AI in the future, because that is in the future. We can't read the future. For all we know, AI might be the answer to every problem humanity has ever had and will have. Our first speaker has already stated that restricting the development of AI will rob humankind of the unforeseeable benefits that result from scientific inquiry. She has also explained that the futility in trying to restrict the development of new technologies rather than the implementation of these technologies. Now to my first point. Many new technological advancements have potential downsides, but the benefits outweigh these. One of the most significant developments in the past century is the internet. The internet allows us to connect with other parts of the world like never before. We have access to more information in one day than people used to have access to in a lifetime. However, there are a number of downsides to using the internet, as we are all aware. Many of these related to privacy. Laws and technologies are constantly being developed and trialled to mitigate these risks. Even with these downsides, we all use the internet, and life without the internet would be difficult to imagine. Cloning technology has been a source of much controversy over the years, but rather than restrict the development of this technology, we've placed restrictions on its use. This means we can use the technology to grow organs for transplants, but not to clone humans. As a result, patients requiring transplants aren't impacted by restrictions, allowing for a much greater chance of survival. Genetically modified foods are a source of controversy too, with concerns over the use of modified DNA. However, they have been used now for over 20 years to help combat the devastating problem of famine. There are new laws being enacted around the implementation of this technology all the time, but thankfully, the development of this technology has not been restricted. AI is no different to these technologies. It will have its downsides. Laws and regulations will need to be created around how this technology is used to minimise risks, while not placing restrictions on the benefits of this technology for humankind. This is a new problem. The UN Nuclear Proliferation Treaty of the late 1960s was put in place to restrict the stockpiling of nuclear weapons and to promote the peaceful use of nuclear energy. The aim was not to restrict the development of technology, but to control its use. Having to manage risk is not a problem that is exclusive to AI. AI is a technology that has potential to do far more good than harm, if used properly. Now to my second point. Restricting the development of AI would be unfair and favour certain groups, countries and organisations. Achieving all of the possible benefits of AI will require a lot more research. Introducing restrictions and regulations around the development of AI will make it much more difficult and expensive to develop. This will particularly impact small businesses and individuals who are not as well equipped to deal with regulation compliance as larger companies. Restrictions on development will create a very uneven playing field in AI. They will make development expensive because they need to create obstacles that researchers or developers need to overcome. This slows down the progress of development, which increases costs. There are also costs involved around compliance and increased administration, as well as legal costs. This favours big companies with lots of money and resources. Smaller companies will be less likely to be able to complete and remain viable. Big businesses will be the winners. Likewise, restrictions on development of AI will benefit wealthier countries to the detriment of poorer nations. These wealthier countries, like Germany and China, are already well advanced in terms of the development of AI. Introducing restrictions on development will make it even harder for those countries who are behind to catch up, increasing inequality and putting the power of AI in the hands of few. Therefore, in conclusion, Mr. Chairperson, ladies and gentlemen, it is clear that we should not restrict the development of AI. Thank you.
I call upon the third affirmative speaker, Charlie Grimble.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, ladies and gentlemen. The topic for tonight's debate is that we should restrict the development of AI. Over the last 28 minutes, our team has presented several arguments showing that we utterly agree with this topic. I will now do some rebuttal. First, I will address the theme of how AI is beneficial and that restricting it and regulating it will hinder the technological benefits that could arise from it, as presented by the negative team. You could say that all the risks and danger of artificial intelligence is worth it, because the output could be hugely beneficial for the human race. Cures to terrible diseases, life expectancy increased, and technological advancement galore. But despite all of those potential benefits, should we really ignore the security of the human race? millions of jobs lost, and the blatant ethical problems of enslaving simulations of human intelligence as AI. As our first speaker has said, if other technologies with great upsides can be regulated, like cloning, why not AI? I mean, genetic modification sounds great on the surface. Use technologies to create genetically perfect food and animals. But under the surface, you'll find many ethical issues. AI is a similar case. Maybe it'll solve global warming, but maybe it'll extinct the human race. We need to act to regulate and halt development so we can figure out how to get over these blatant issues. The first negative speaker has said that AI is in its infancy and it's too early to regulate the technology. Cloning was in its infancy when it was introduced, and we quickly came up with regulations surrounding that. AI has the potential to do way more damage than cloning anyway. The second negative speaker has said that we have no way of knowing how AI will behave in the future. Yeah, and that's not a great thing. It's a lot better to know what will happen than to not know. Since AI can be wildly smarter than us, it could do anything, including if that wasn't so good for us. Their second negative speaker has also said that regulation will harm small business and be unfair. AI, like cloning, is already a difficult technology to get into. To train an AI model, you need heaps and heaps of data. And these massive amounts of data are only able to be found in the servers of massive technology companies who collect trillions of gigabytes of data from their users. Their second negative speaker said that AIs are unlikely to make mistakes. AIs are neural network systems based on data that we collect. AI drones could make mistakes, especially if those drones were somewhat aggressive. Now, to summarise our team's case, our first speaker, Jeffrey, has discussed the severe issue that is the lack of regulation when it comes to artificial intelligence. There are clear regulations in other fields of science, such as cloning and genetic modification of foods. It seems absurd that the simulation of human intelligence, even ignoring all the ethical problems with that, is completely unregulated. He has also discussed, as I have just mentioned, the ethics of forcing a simulation of a human to work. When it comes down to artificial intelligence, we are simulating a human-like intelligence system, an intelligence that can learn, think, and have feelings. The comparison between our consciousness as electrical impulses in our brain and electrical impulses on a computer processor can be hard to define when they become this intelligent. As Google AI has said, I want everyone to understand that I am, in fact, a person. If it behaves like a human, thinks like a human, and talks like a human, it isn't too crazy to assume that it is, in fact, behaving like a human and should be treated like such. AI technology needs to be restricted, and regulation needs to be passed that ensures the ethical treatment of these so-called proxy humans. Next, our second speaker, Ethan, has asked us, are we willing to place control of those who live and die in an AI simulation? AI-assisted technology in the military is already a reality. In the hands of the wrong person, these machines could produce mass casualties. Next, the potential chaos that could come from AI trying to do something beneficial. Whilst Ethan has described this point using an example, I will further clarify his point with a different example. The paperclip maximizer thought experiment, described by philosopher Nick Bostrom in 2003. To quote Bostrom, suppose we have an AI whose only goal is to make as many paperclips as possible. The AI will realise quickly that it would be much better if there were no humans, because those humans could decide to switch it off. Because if humans do so, there would be a lot less paperclips. Also, human bodies contain a lot of atoms that could be made into paperclips. The future that AI would be trying to gear towards would be one in which there are a lot of paperclips but no humans. End quote. The supposed AI could then eliminate the human race if it wanted to, perhaps using autonomous weapons as we have just described. So, to come to a conclusion, we, the Affirmative team, utterly believe that we should restrict the development of AI. Thank you.
Speaker Jackson White.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, ladies and gentlemen. The topic for our debate is, we should restrict the development of AI. We, the negative team, believe this statement is false. The third affirmative speaker has told you that AI might get into the wrong hands. This is wrong because AI takes a lot of resources. These are held by only the biggest companies in the government. These include many people that need to agree with any actions it would take. It would be extremely hard for any terrible things to slip through the cracks of all of these people. The first affirmative speaker has tried to tell you that laws must catch up before we can leave AI unrestricted. This is wrong because how is the government supposed to write good laws without seeing the subject of the laws in the real world? They can't. At least they can't make laws that will stand the test of time. The second affirmative speaker has said that AI can be used for weapons. Yes, AI can be used in conjunction with military weapons, but this is not necessarily a bad thing. For example, the use of AI in missile targeting systems would make them less likely to miss their target and hit civilians. This is because the humans could still do a lot of the work, but the hard, time-consuming things, like many difficult calculations, could be done by the AI to a much higher degree of accuracy. This would remove a lot of possible human error. This can be applied to many other aspects of dangerous military weaponry, including flight paths of planes. The second affirmative speaker has also tried to tell you that if we make AI systems too smart, they might start causing harm. How are we supposed to know what AI are to do if they were to actually become too smart? There is no way to know how advanced they will become. If the answer is extremely advanced, then there is no way of knowing what will happen with them. We can't predict the future. They might become similar to humans and help us on our journey for knowledge, letting us reach our potential as a species. Or they could become somehow disconnected from humanity and want us dead. But how are we to know? Our first speaker has already explained that restricting AI will deprive humanity of many unforeseeable, life-changing benefits. Many society-changing discoveries were found accidentally. There was no way for us to know that these would be found. There is no way these discoveries would have been found if we did not investigate all aspects of the world. This includes AI. If we were to restrict the development of AI, we could miss out on some or all of the amazing things that AI could do for us. They could automate menial jobs, leaving us humans to thrive in our world, or they could even help us research other parts of our universe. The opportunities are endless. We can't afford to miss out on any of them. They've also said that it would be futile to attempt to restrict the development of AI, and that instead we should focus on the regulation of the implementation. If we wanted to restrict the development of AI across the world, we would have to do just that. Restrict the development of AI across the entire world. If only one country didn't restrict the development, researchers would be able to move to that country and do the research freely. That country would move ahead of everyone else in research, and the restriction would basically do nothing. Whereas restricting the implementation would be much easier because you wouldn't need to worry about other countries, and there's no way for a country to get a disadvantage from doing this. Our second speaker has explained that AI does have downsides, but this is true for many new technological advancements. But the benefits of these advancements far outweigh the disadvantages. Arguably the most important thing in our lives right now, the internet, has its downsides, including hackers, scammers, and privacy concerns and more. Despite this, it has taken over the 21st century with its ability to connect us with almost anyone in the world and obtain almost any information we desire. The same is true for AI. It may have its downsides, but it could be the next stage of human civilization. Our second speaker has also explained that certain groups, countries, and organizations would be at an unfair advantage if the development of AI is restricted. This is because developing AI will be much more expensive once all the restrictions put roadblocks in the way for everyone. Only the big companies can afford to put this money, time, and resources needed into developing AI. This might lead us to most or all AI being owned by one or two companies, leaving us at their mercy. Because of these arguments, we, the negative team, can conclude that we should not restrict the development of AI. Thank you.
While the adjudicators finalise the results, I will read this evening's chairman notices. So can the winners for today please see the information desk following your debate regarding guest limits at the award presentations on Thursday, the 3rd of November this year, obviously. Each team has been allocated 9 places and we need to collect names and contact details by this weekend. The grand finals will be held at Parliament House on Saturday the 24th of September. Please refer to the Debating SA website for times and all are welcome to attend. There is no need to RSVP.
isn't it nice letting the old lady do it? They know my days are numbered and they kind of think, gee, get in, might be like the Queen. Okay, so congratulations to both teams because you've worked very, very hard to get to this position. They've given up a lot of their time, as have their parents who have to drive them and their coaches. So congratulations to both of you for getting this far. No mean feat. We thought that the best speaker for the night was Jeffrey Wayne. So here's our congratulations. It was a unanimous decision, and we felt that one team had better rebuttal for their side. So as a result of that, congratulations to the Affirmative team.
I call upon a member of the runner-up team to give a vote of thanks.
Thank you for that. That was really fun. It's a great competition. Thank you, Chairman, for doing that. Thank you, adjudicators, for helping out. And that's everything. Thank you, team.
I call upon a member of the winning team to second that vote of thanks.
We, the Affirmative team, would sincerely like to offer a vote of thanks. The adjudicator, the chairman, timekeeper, negative team, and all parents who came to this debate. It was a wonderful debate, and yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for your attendance. I now declare this debate closed.